From 10,000 years ago to nowadays in 100 seconds. Hi everyone! Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a whirlwind tour through the history of Alabama, from 10,000 years ago to now. Let's begin. 10,000 years ago, Paleo-Indian people are living in what is today Alabama. They would hunt mastodons and other large animals for food. They would also gather plants and nuts. These people were nomadic, meaning they moved around a lot. They didn't stay in one place for very long. This is also called hunter-gatherer. 8,000 years ago, the Paleo-Indians are replaced by the archaic Indians. The archaic Indians were the first people to settle down and grow their own food. They grew things like corn, beans, and squash. They also kept domesticated animals like dogs and turkeys. 5,000 years ago, the Mississippian culture was flourishing in Alabama. This culture built large earthen mounds as burial places for their elite. The largest of these mounds can be found at the site of 1,000 years ago. The Creek and Cherokee people were living in Alabama. These two tribes would be major players in the history of the state. Now let's fast forward to 1500. Europeans arrived in North America, and they quickly began exploring the area that is today Alabama. The first European to explore this area was Spanish explorer Alonso de Santa Cruz. He explored the Mobile River in 1540. In 1699, the French would establish a settlement in Mobile. This settlement would be the first European settlement in Alabama. The French would name it Fort Louis de Boyd. In 1704, the English would establish a rival settlement named Fort Toulouse. This settlement would be located near present-day Tuscaloosa. In 1710, the Creek War would break out between the French and the English. The war would be over control of the fur trade. The Creek would ally with the English, while the French would ally with the Czech. The war would end in 1711 with the Treaty of the Great Peace. The treaty would give the French control of the Mobile area, while the English would control the rest of Alabama. In 1763, after the French and Indian War, the entire region would be ceded to the British. In 1790, the United States would purchase the area from the British. This purchase would include present-day Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. The United States would pay the British $5 million for this land. In 1817, Alabama would become a territory of the United States. This would allow the United States to start exploring and settling the area. In 1819, Alabama would be admitted to the Union as the 22nd state. This would happen just 6 days before its rival, Mississippi. The two states were so close in terms of admission that they were almost admitted together as one state. But President Monroe decided to separate them in order to keep the balance of power between the North and the South. During the early 1800s, many new settlements would be established throughout Alabama. This would lead to increased tension with the Native Americans who were already living in the area. In 1813, the Red Stick War would break out between the United States and the Native Americans. The Native Americans would lose the war and would be forced to move west. This would open up more land for settlers. During the mid-1800s, slavery would become the center of the economy in Alabama. Alabama would become one of the largest slave markets in the United States. In 1860, the United States would count the enslaved people in Alabama, and there would be 31,000. This would make up about 43% of the population. In 1861, Alabama would secede from the Union. It would be the 8th state to do so. The main reason for secession was to preserve slavery. During the Civil War, Alabama would send more than 60,000 soldiers to fight for the Confederacy. Many of these soldiers would go on to die in battles such as Shiloh, Antietam, and Gettysburg. After the Civil War, Alabama would be readmitted to the Union in 1868. During Reconstruction, the state would be under the control of the federal government. This would last from 1865 to 1877. During this time period, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments would be passed. These amendments would abolish slavery, guarantee equal protection under the law, and guarantee the right to vote regardless of race. Despite these amendments, African Americans would still face discrimination and violence. In 1901, the Women's Christian Temperance Union would be formed in Alabama. This group would work to ban the sale of alcohol. Their efforts would eventually lead to the passage of the 18th Amendment in 1919. During the Great Depression, Alabama would be hit hard. The state's economy was largely based on agriculture and industry. Both of these industries were hurt by the Depression. During World War II, Alabama would play an important role. The state would produce a large number of military supplies. In addition, many African American women would work in shipyards. After the war, the United States would enter a period of economic growth. This growth would continue until the 1970s. Alabama would benefit from this growth, and the state's economy would continue to expand. During the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, Alabama would be at the forefront. The movement was led by activists such as Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. Their goal was to end segregation and discrimination against African Americans. In 1955, Rosa Parks would refuse to give up her seat on a bus to a white man. This would lead to her arrest and the Montgomery bus boycott. The boycott would last for over a year and would eventually lead to the desegregation of buses in Montgomery. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. would help organize the Birmingham campaign. This campaign would use nonviolent resistance to end segregation in Birmingham. The campaign would eventually lead to the desegregation of businesses and public facilities in Birmingham. In 1965, the Selma to Montgomery marches would take place. These marches would help push for the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The act would make it illegal to deny a person the right to vote based on their race. Since the 1970s, Alabama has continued to struggle economically. The state's economy has been hurt by the decline of its major industries, including agriculture and manufacturing. In addition, the state has had to deal with a number of environmental issues, including the cleanup of the Alabama Power Company's coal ash ponds in recent years. However, the state's economy has begun to turn around. The state has attracted a number of new businesses, and the job market has improved. In addition, the state has made progress on cleaning up its coal ash ponds. Today, Alabama is a very different state than it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the state was largely agricultural and industrial. Today, the state's economy is much more diverse. In addition, the state has made great strides in civil rights. 100 years ago, African Americans were not allowed to vote in most of the state. Today, they make up a significant portion of the state's electorate. As we look ahead to the next 100 years, we can be confident that Alabama will continue to make progress. The state has a rich history and a bright future. Thank you for watching my video about the history of Alabama from 10,000 years ago to nowadays. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also subscribe to my channel to learn more about the history of the United States.